Oh yeah, we're back, baby. Here's every movie I saw this year in order from worst to best, in my opinion. I didn't see every movie. I missed a couple that I would have liked to have seen, but them's the breaks, Palorinos. 2025 was honestly a pretty subpar year for movies, at least for what I'm looking for from a trip to the movies. Most of these films I'm not really all that passionate about, but I feel this list serves as a time capsule, a retrospective for the year. It's also an excuse for me to slag off Lilo and Stitch more, so that's kind of a win.
Lilo and Stitch.
If you're new here, let me be transparent. The bottom movie on this list might not be the objectively worst movie that I saw this year. Rather, it's my least favourite. It's the one that I personally hated watching the most. Hence, this spot goes to the biggest bastardization of a timeless classic since the last Disney live-action remake. I already talked at length about this movie. Statistically, you didn't see it because it got flagged for copyright, and then YouTube kind of just hid it because it wasn't making any money, so they didn't want to promote it. Just go and watch this video, please. The cliff notes are... it's shit.
Anaconda.
I technically saw this movie in 2026, but it released last year, and I can't pass up an opportunity to slag this shit off. There is nothing more insufferable than a bad comedy. Something about the cockiness with the way that a bad comedy presents itself makes it so much harder to sit through. Any filmmaking positives become so much harder to recognise behind the inescapable fact that these people are making more per god-awful joke than I make in a year, and they expect us to like this shit? To sit here and just accept it? It's fucking embarrassing. The meta approach that this 2025 reimagining, remake, whatever the hell they want to call it, doesn't feel fun or subversive, like 21 Jump Street, for example. It feels like an excuse as to why this film feels like they wrote it in an afternoon. I'd go further. I find some of the comparisons to indie filmmaking and the fun behind making art to be a little bit manipulative. Like, maybe if this movie actually had that kind of creative spark that they're so desperately trying to portray the characters have, the film wouldn't have been such a slog. This is the only movie on this list, and really that I can remember, that I have actually fallen asleep while watching. I cannot fucking remember the last time I nodded off in a cinema, and yet here we are. I fell asleep! And I love movies! This meta-comedy approach to remake is pathetic. The cast is woefully out of their depth for the actual content, yes, even the ones that you like. Outside of one fun cameo and one really good music choice, there's no positives to take from this heap of snake shit. I love Kickstart My Heart, but it was never going to win me over. That's a fib, actually. Not that I like Kickstart My Heart, but there is one thing. The original score for this movie is good. I like it. David Fleming is the only name attached to this film who I think can take some pride in the work they did. I'd put a word into IMDb and ask them to take this off your fucking page, mate.
The Twits.
What can I say about this diabolical train wreck? I like how intentionally unappealing some of the animation is, or at least I hope that was intentional, wink wink. It gives the film a unique look and kind of fits the theme of the Twits being these inherently unpleasant people, so I actually don't mind how it looks. But there's nothing else in this movie worth a shit. There's one joke. There's one singular dialogue exchange of 2 lines that made me exhale through my nose in a way not dissimilar to a laugh. It's a pathetic tarnishing of one of the more underrated Roald Dahl classics. I reached the part in the movie where a guy's bum swells up and he does a fart so big it blows up his asshole, and I stopped giving this movie any credit. I didn't put any effort into really turning on my brain to watch the rest of it. They clearly fucking didn't put the effort in. I refuse to put more effort into condemning this movie than they put into making it. Not without my own Netflix original-sized paycheck. Feel free to donate to my coffee account, by the way.
Materialists.
I don't think I've seen a movie so mean-spirited since I Care a Lot. Remember that? No, you don't. Stop lying. I'm very willing to accept that there's a lot about this movie that I simply don't get on a fundamental level because, I don't live in a big city or am conventionally attractive. It's not about gender. I watched this and most of the movies on this list with a dear friend of mine called Molly, and she thought it stunk too. But if getting it means enjoying the ride with these awful characters, actually believing the shallow dating approach portrayed here, or feeling betrayed when it turns out that Pedro Pascal is a former short king, no spoilers, but that was a really cringe-inducing scene, and we were supposed to take it seriously, I'm quite happy preferring movies that are actually fun. I hope that as this list goes on, you get a better idea of my sensibilities when it comes to movies. I like movies that are fun. That doesn't mean just comedies. It can be fun to feel sad, anxious, terrified, pensive, or insightful. This movie just doesn't have enough fun. I genuinely believe this movie is made for nobody. And I've spoken to friends who actually quite enjoyed it, so clearly I'm off base on that, but I just cannot understand what anyone would get from this movie. And we're not even out of the woods yet, people.
Love hurts.
I'm baffled as to what happened here. This movie feels like it was put together in a weekend, muddling through the plot that feels so at odds with itself that when the obvious reveal happens at the end, I was honest to God stunned that they even bothered presenting it like a surprise. I wasn't stunned at what they revealed, it was fucking obvious. I was stunned that they thought we'd go, whoa! There's all the ingredients for a basically competent action romance comedy here, but it feels like it was rushed out before it was done for the sake of being a manly Valentine's Day movie. They had to get it out so that a guy could drag a girl to a movie on Valentine's Day. Then Bridget Jones rocked up, shoot it up, spat it out, and that's that. Put a bow on it. A footnote of history, this movie's only purpose is to serve as a difficult pub quiz question in a few years' time.
Black bag.
Speaking of movies everyone will forget, there's a difference between a movie that's on a slow boil and a movie where they forgot to turn the hob on, so they just whack it onto max right at the end to get their pasta done in time for work. That's not a personal anecdote. Nothing happens in this movie. I remember no plot point. I remember no character's motivations. I don't even remember a character's fucking name. People go fishing at one point. They come up with these weird, like, conspiracy theories about each other. And then someone gets shot at one point. It's a spy thriller that's not thrilling. I'm finding it difficult to even continue talking about Black Bag because there's nothing that sticks in my mind about it. It's no fucking fun. Remember what that feels like to be able to have fun with movies? Black Bag doesn't. I'm gonna edit this video, get all my ducks in a row, and as soon as this video is uploaded, I feel confident saying I will literally never spare a thought on Black Bag again.
Drop.
This is a really subpar attempt to make a horror movie for the meme generation. Drop is a movie really not worth picking up. Anyway, the movie only really comes alive in the last scene in the restaurant. That's because the way the baddie dies made me laugh really hard. Seriously, there are comedy movies on this list, higher on this list in fact, that didn't make me laugh as hard as this one scene did. Incredible. I bumped it up a couple of spots for that exact reason. I still don't recommend it though. Would you eat a dog shit sundae with a cherry on top just because you really like cherries?
Snow White.
Was there really anyone who expected this movie to be good? This was the perfect storm of shit. Toxic discourse from a bunch of losers pretending to care about a movie that's nearly a century old so they could be mean about a 24-year-old girl on the internet. The queen of crap herself looking completely lost in her evil witch cosplay. Horrific special effects that one would expect to be better considering the budget. This movie was doomed before it came out. But honestly, some of you need to chill the fuck out. It is exactly as shit as it was always gonna be, but no shittier. It's not the worst live-action remake. It's not even the worst live-action Disney remake this year. People who don't know the words to Whistle While You Work are saying this is a disgrace to the legacy of a movie that they don't know or care about just for the sake of being angry at it. Just fucking calm down a little bit. Will you? Or for Christ's sake, watch more movies. You think this is bad? There are people who are getting involved in the discourse to be toxic and aggressive and have no actual interest in the original movie. They're looking for an excuse to be mad. And this movie gave it to them by just being shit. But that's all it is. Shit. We move.
Good fortune.
Yeah, better luck next time. It's a real tragedy that this movie wasn't better. It's a pretty solid concept with a cast that is generally probably capable of making it work. The issue with this one, to be honest, is the creative voice behind it. Or lack thereof. Aziz Ansari is not a leading man. He's not a screenwriter. He's not a director. And yet here he is, trying to do all three things at the same time. It feels unpleasant of me to put this movie's failings directly at his feet, but as the writer, director, and star, what else can I do? If this concept was given to a director with a stronger vision, or a screenwriter with a clearer voice, or a leading actor who's actually charismatic enough to take us through the highs and lows and the different character beats, it wouldn't have felt so surface level. But it wasn't any of that. It was an ego trip for Aziz to prove that there's so much more to him than stand-up comedy. Unfortunately, that failed, because it turns out there's not.
Captain America, Brave New World.
This was the movie that made it clear to me that they simply don't make Marvel movies like they used to anymore. They're not for us, my friends. They're for the next generation of Marvel fans to act just as insufferable about it as we did in high school. And that's not a dig, by the way, there's no hate. We were all in that boat at one point. I was an obnoxious Marvel boy in high school as well. I get it. I'm old enough to remember when the Captain America movies were groundbreaking and crucial entries in the Marvel franchise, bursting with subversions and revelations. Then you sit through this snooze fest and go, oh, okay, they're really just trying to make lightning strike twice. Well, maybe not trying. Trying implies effort. Not even spoiling the reveal that Harrison Ford was Red Hulk in all the press interviews made anyone care. Who would have thought, by the way, that both these guys would be doing their best work on streaming service TV shows? Recommended, by the way, Shrinking and Twisted Metal.
Novocaine.
This one's honestly just kind of a disappointment. The idea of an action movie about a guy who literally just does not feel pain sounds like a better idea than it ends up being. I think the best bit of the movie is the first act, really. To see this guy live with this condition. There's a lot of cool environmental storytelling. It's interesting to see the way he's held back his life as a result of this. I kind of like that aspect of it. Unfortunately, once the bank gets robbed, things devolve into a generic action movie with an occasionally kind of cool scene that makes you go, oh yeah, right, you can't feel pain. Oh yeah. It feels like such a missed opportunity to make the rest of the movie so generic. Even disregarding that and judging the movie for what it is, it's overly long and not hugely compelling as an action movie. The few kind of cool scenes aren't exactly must-see moments. Unless you're a big fan of Jack Quaid, or you genuinely do have 2 hours that you need to kill with a new movie, it's not something I necessarily recommend, but I can imagine someone enjoying this movie, so who knows? It's a pretty painless trip, but only because boredom isn't necessarily painful.
The Wedding Banquet.
This is a movie that will likely resonate with other people a lot more than it did with me. I appreciate it for adding the word gunkles to my vocabulary. Gay uncles. Brilliant. But the actual journey the movie takes us on is, well, I couldn't really get into it. It's a little too languid, it's a little too proud of its own observations, and I have a personal bugbear with rom-coms where the main source of conflict comes from people's inability to communicate with their partners. Am I really supposed to believe that you're all so deeply in love with each other if you can't just fucking talk to each other? It's a personal thing for me, but it's something that plagues a lot of rom-coms, and I always find it really fucking lazy. I don't know, maybe watching as many films as I do has kind of spoiled me, but I've seen plenty of different movies that tackle similar themes far better. Maybe it's a cultural thing, and you may well get more out of it than I do as a result of that. I can't say it's bad, it just didn't hit with me.
Roofman.
I resent the idea that someone can eat nothing but peanut M&Ms for months and still have a six-pack. I have one fucking Toblerone and my stomach does this. Roofman feels like a guns for hire job. I was interested in it primarily because I remember really liking Place Beyond the Pines from a few years back, but this feels like what happens when a director signs onto a movie and then finds out the story it's based on. I'm not saying that's what happened necessarily, but that's how it feels. There are plenty of characters in this movie that feel half-finished. Peter Dinklage's character is almost a complete character, but doesn't really develop any further. Juno Temple's character has less screen time than the Toys R Us giraffe, and Channing Tatum doesn't bring anything to the role that any other Hollywood white guy couldn't bring. I don't know how that sentence is supposed to end. I can't write. Why are you even fucking watching me? It's really only Kirsten Dunst and her daughters that have any sort of compelling character, but they can't carry a movie about the Roofman. Which is a shame, because the Roofman can't carry it either.
Until Dawn.
This is a horror movie. The problem with it is that that's all it is. There's a few very tangential references to the games, there's a few well thought out sequences that are effectively scary, but there's very little actually tying it together. When I walked out of this movie, I thought about a joke that Yahtzee made in his review of Evil Within. It resonated with me because that's kind of how this felt.
It plays like somebody said, hey, make a horror game. And somebody else said, okay, what about? I just told you about horror. No, I mean, what happens in it? What's the context? What are the major themes you want to work with? Horror, horror, and horror. Jesus Christ, just do it. Why are you so difficult to work with?
It's a little bit body horror, and a little bit slasher, and a little bit supernatural, and a little bit of every horror trope that leads to a whole lot of puddle shallow experiences. A little bit of everything that adds up to a whole lot of nothing. If you are a horror fan, there are plenty of movies more deserving of your time. If you're an Until Dawn fan, honestly, I'd just play the game again, or one of the other supermassive experiences. If you're not a fan of either, well, you figure it out. Have I got to do all your thinking for you? Serious? That's just laziness, that is. Put some effort in. So, for the record, we're reaching the movies that are more like 6 out of 10 plus experiences. I'm still not crazy positive about the next chunk of movies I'm going to discuss, but they're the kind of movies that, if you think you'll like it, you're probably right. I mean, I don't know. I don't know you. I'm sure you know more about yourself than I do. Why are you always relying on me to tell you how to feel?
How to Train Your Dragon.
This one I can breeze through. If you've seen the original, this one's not as good. If you didn't see the original, this is fine, but you might as well see the original. If you didn't like the original, you won't like this one. If you liked the original, you'll probably like this one because it's fundamentally the same movie, but it's not as good. $150 million well fucking spent.
We Live in Time.
This one's actually kind of interesting, because there's a lot to like about it. The plot's solid, the lead actors carry the film's emotional moments really well, and I appreciate the decision to make it such a deeply personal journey. We see so much of these characters in such hauntingly visceral moments. It's a bold choice that I really like. The interesting part, unfortunately not the same as being the best part, but the interesting part is that one core filmmaking decision causes me to inherently kind of disconnect from it. You see, it's not presented in chronological order. There's a scene in a petrol station that I won't spoil, but it's my favourite scene, and it would have hit me so much harder if we didn't already know that everything is basically going to turn out okay for everyone involved, at least in the immediate future. It might not bother you, but it definitely bothered me. It takes a lot of mystery out of the film, and it kind of made it feel like nothing could really surprise me. I have a general belief that any story is better when you're not sure what's going to happen next. Not that this hasn't been subverted before, but the not knowing means that the story can still surprise you, present you with interesting developments which change how you see the story at large. Even something like The Very Hungry Caterpillar is more interesting before you know he becomes a butterfly at the end. Spoiler alert. It's a shame because, as I said, there's a lot to like. It's just this one choice that reshapes the narrative into something that is inherently less compelling of a journey for me. We Live in Time, that is, not The Very Hungry Caterpillar. That's still dope.
Death of a Unicorn.
Yeah, it's alright. It's another movie that could have probably benefited from having the creative sit down and say, look, what are we actually trying to do with this movie? The cast is fine. Will Poulter is the standout for me in particular, but it just doesn't lean into the absurdity until it's too late. I don't have much to say about this movie because ultimately I do think it's perfectly fine as it is. But I could see this being someone's favourite movie, so hey, maybe you'll get more out of it than I did. I'm not here to tell you what to think, I'm here to tell you what I think, and I think this movie is fine.
Sonic the Hedgehog 3.
The first movie I saw this year, smack dab in 6 out of 10 territory. It's my favourite of the Sonic movies, with a great cast and a good sense of energy. There's even a lot of lessons that I think many people of all ages could really benefit from hearing. There's a particularly nuanced line about stars and grief, which made me sit up in my chair in the cinema and think, yeah, I think more people could do with hearing that. For me though, it feels a little too childish at points, and the pacing is far too quick. Gotta go fast indeed. There's a great scene at the start of the movie set to Goldfinger's excellent cover of 99 Red Balloons, but it's over before it really works its magic and it feels like a glimpse into what could have been. Yeah, kinda cool, kinda fun. Oh, it's done. Okay. That's kind of the basis for the whole movie, in truth, except for the Jim Carrey dance scene, which honestly went on way too long for my taste. I get it. Ha ha ha, I get it. This sounds more negative than I mean for it to, but I guess that's just because this is one of those movies where I feel like I need to justify my lukewarm response to it more than I have to justify what I like about it. So for the record, It's a good Sonic the Hedgehog movie, but it's only as good as it needs to be, and no better.
Wolfman.
Leigh Whannell is one of the best and most interesting directors in the business right now for me. Upgrade is great. Invisible Man is great. So they figured they'd let him reinvent another classic Universal horror monster with Wolfman. The thing is, though, I'm not really in this movie for the Wolfman. The most compelling part of the film, for me, is the transformation process. That is true horror. Seeing this man's humanity slip away, seeing his heightened senses playing tricks on him, seeing the animalistic way that he interprets the world, that stuff is great. If it were a film that was more solely about his transition, I genuinely believe this movie could have been seminal. Unfortunately, eventually, he actually does become the Wolfman, and the result is a Wolfman movie. A Wolfman movie that feels like really anyone could have made it. I don't know what made them lean into the more generic side of the story in the second half, but I don't feel like it has the spark that's been ever present in Whannell's former works. I guess it sounds weird to say this Wolfman movie is too much of a Wolfman movie, but again, he has a record for creating compelling, personal, intricate stories with these fantastical horror elements, and it feels a bit wasted to just turn it into a bog-standard werewolf fight at the end. Even in that sense, you shouldn't judge a movie based on what you want it to be. You should only judge it for what it is. I can't give it points for what it could have been. It is what it is. And what it is a really interesting and intricate look into someone turning into a monster, and then a monster movie.
The Naked Gun.
I'm really kind of glad that we still have movies like this being made, even if it's not exactly made how I would want it. The parts of the movie that feel like the original are where it really shines. The great background gags, the fun absurdist humour, and crucially a breakneck pace so that if a joke doesn't land, it doesn't overstay its welcome. You know? They tell a joke. It's not that funny, we move. 5 seconds later, it's a different joke. That one's funny. I laugh. We move again. Keeping that breakneck pace helps this movie feel energetic and interesting. I'm not exaggerating, though, when I say that the two worst jokes in the movie go on for multiple minutes straight. There's a joke at one point where a guy has, like, heat-seeking goggles or whatever, and he sees something that looks like sex, and then it's not sex, and that goes on way too long. Like, we fucking get it. There's a joke near the end of the movie where Liam Neeson's penis is hanging over balls in some New Year countdown thing, and everyone takes an opportunity to talk about how weird his balls and his dick look like, and it's like, yeah, okay, we get it. The joke about the chili dog in the car gets kind of close to this, but not, you know. These two are the worst examples as far as I'm concerned. I was wondering why they would lean so heavily into the worst parts of the movie with such a bizarre confidence and commitment to a bit that's just not as funny as the creators intend for it to be. And then I saw Seth MacFarlane's name as one of the producers. You see, with enough time, some mysteries solve themselves.
The Surfer.
Nicolas Cage continues to give stellar performances in movies that sadly aren't really big enough to contain him. His performance in this movie is the single strongest aspect of it. It's an excellent performance. But Julian McMahon is no slouch either and deserves recognition too, as the charismatic leader of a seaside gang called the Bay Boys. His performance is great, and these two really help the journey of the characters feel compelling. Unfortunately, I think the movie loses a lot of steam by the end. The ultimate reveal of the Bay Boys and their intent behind gaslighting the surfer, yes, that's his name, feels like such an anticlimax considering the rest of the movie. Also, no spoilers, but more of this movie than I would care to admit can be reasonably intuited while you're watching. So it doesn't really feel like there are many surprises to be had. It's all just watching Australians be mean to some guy. I suppose whether you enjoy this movie more or less than I did is dependent on whether you value a journey or a destination in your movies. This film in particular feels like having a 3-foot fuse attached to a single firework. But the fuse is colourful, uniquely presented and interesting to watch. More so than the firework in this instance. There, I hope that analogy adequately informs your viewing decision. You're welcome. Hey everybody, it's a fun little intermission. Woo!
The Phoenician Scheme.
I did see The Phoenician Scheme this year, and I definitely liked it, but I watched it at a different cinema than the one I normally go to, which had very uncomfortable chairs and a terrible sound system. So in truth, I don't think I saw the movie in a way that I can accurately express my feelings on it. I struggled to really understand what some of the characters were saying at some points, so if there may well have been some nuance that was completely lost on me. I'm just slipping it here to document that I did see it and I did like it, but it's the only movie on this list that I wasn't able to actually score.
Final Destination, Bloodlines.
It's pretty good, yeah. It's not good enough to have me saying shit like, oh yeah guys, Final Destination is back. I'm thinking Final Destination's fucking back, boys. Or anything like that. But for long overdue sequels, it's a solidly effective little movie full of gruesome deaths, fun reveals, and the occasional big laugh. It's a crowd pleaser, I would say. They knew people were waiting for a new Final Destination, and they delivered exactly what they needed to, even if the final scene is fucking wild. Are you kidding?
A Real Pain.
A Real Pain is good. Really good at points. The main dynamic is great between the brothers. I think it's a solid idea for a movie, and the supporting cast is actually interesting and informs the decisions of the leads, which is really underrated, as we'll explore in a later movie that I discuss that does this not as well, but is an overall better experience. I always say that in movies like this, I consider it a success if I can, at different points throughout the movie, relate to and understand each character and get frustrated with them. And this movie definitely does that. As a dual character study, it's at its best. But I think the pacing is a little slow at points. Sometimes it works. Like, there's one particularly harrowing scene which had the theatre I saw this in absolutely silent. That never happens. But you could hear a pin drop during this scene. It was beautifully done. But sometimes the slow pacing is there to drag out dialogue that feels like it could have been cut down a little bit. There's also a few filmmaking decisions that take me out of the experience. The choice to use specific classical music pieces feels incongruous with the emotions that I'm feeling, and tonally that kind of knocks me a little bit. It's a deliberate choice, so I respect it, but I feel like it clashes too much. It didn't work all its magic for me, is what I'm saying. But it did work enough of the magic that I walk out saying, it's a good movie, worth seeing. Wow, I really could have summarized that in one fucking sentence. I'm terrible at this job. A Real Pain and the rest of the movies that I'm going to talk about here are movies that I can generally recommend to pretty much anyone. These are all movies I think most people will get something out of, that are well made and compelling and earn my coveted 3-word seal of approval, worth your time. That's not to say that you will definitely like all these movies, of course. I don't know you. And I hope this list so far has made my sensibilities as a moviegoer clearer for you, so you can get a better picture as to if our tastes align and on what. But I think that the next bunch of movies, A Real Pain and what we're about to talk about, are worth watching to see for yourself. What the hell were you going to achieve in 2 hours anyway? You might as well try these movies out if you're interested in them. Who knows? One of them could end up being your favourite.
Companion.
Companion feels like a movie that's ahead of its time, which sadly also explains why it feels a little less ambitious than it might seem. You see, based on the trailer, it seems like a kind of twisted love abuse story focusing around a guy with his robot girlfriend. The actual movie is more of a traditional horror movie with those extra elements used more for garnish. It could have been interesting to explore the idea of dating an android in more detail, and they do pull some pretty clever tricks with the idea. In particular, when Iris is talking to a police officer, she uses her programming abilities really, really well. Sophie Thatcher kills it, by the way. Really great stuff. Brilliant leading performance. I guess I would describe this movie more like a generic heist-like horror movie than the subversive, twisted, gripping thriller that it sets itself as, and certainly the trailer does. I definitely can't say it's bad. It's just a movie that doesn't realise its own potential, I feel. Like someone who's naturally good at football but doesn't actually care much about football, so just plays to keep in shape and doesn't plan to go pro. Probably had an injury, I could have gone pro if it weren't for my Achilles heel. Arsenal and Chelsea were looking at me.
Mickey 17.
There's a lot of layers to the kind of conversation that I want to have with this movie, but I've already been talking into my iPad for over 40 minutes, so I'm going to try and keep this brief. It's a good movie, which sadly falls short of being a great movie. I think Bong Joon-ho is an excellent director, and Parasite is an excellent film. It was my favourite film of the year when it came out. But this being an English language film feels like a lot of his nuance and talent is kind of lost in translation. There are points in this movie that feel like a general idea that's struggling under an inability to clearly communicate itself. Robert Pattinson and Mark Ruffalo are the two actors that I specifically want to discuss here because they kind of illustrate this point clearly. To do this, I'm going to borrow an observation from Soul Brother number 3.
A theory I had to define the two roles was that there's vessels and creators. Vessels can possess all the technical acting ability under the sun and thrive when being directed. Creators are all that, but can direct themselves.
Bearing in mind that Bong Joon-ho doesn't speak English as a first language, the nuance in his direction seems to have been a little bit lost in translation. And I'd like to apply Soul Brothers theory to these two actors. Robert Pattinson, as an actor, is clearly a creative. He comes to a clear understanding of Mickey's character and can direct himself to give a really compelling performance. Mark Ruffalo is clearly more of a vessel. His slightly bizarre, off-putting performance gives the vibe of someone who doesn't really know what they're supposed to be doing, but he kind of thinks the character's a little bit like Trump. So he does his whole character a little bit like Trump. And it feels far more forced as a result and not really as intricate, nuanced, or deep as Robert Pattinson's character. Not to say the movie itself is actually bad, I happen to think it's still a pretty good movie all around, but I can see a way better version of this movie being obfuscated by the inability to communicate the nuances. And in that sense, I think it's a bit of a shame. I'd sooner recommend Parasite. Go watch that. It's really good.
Superman.
Honestly, I walked out of this movie and liked it fine. I thought it was good fun with a character who I think is okay, but can generally be a little bit boring. I thought it was densely packed with stuff that meant some of it doesn't really get the chance to shine, but the overall theme, tone, and vibe was exactly the kind of thing that I would have wanted from a Superman movie, so I left feeling overall positive. But the more time that passed since seeing it, the more I thought about it, vibed to the songs on the soundtrack, on my playlists, saw some behind the scenes work that went into it, and thought about everything else, I wound up liking it more and more in retrospect. I think it's the kind of movie that really stays with you. I like the subversion, I love the energy, I love the colours, I love the characters. Mostly. I still have no idea who some of these people are and what their point is. I also still think it's a little bit too densely packed to be as instantly recognizable as some of the other movies that are higher on this list, or even other DC projects like the original Shazam, which for me is still probably, gram for gram and pound for pound, the best of the modern era of DC movies. And there are a few scenes that kind of overstay their welcome a little bit. There's an entire scene where Superman saves a baby from a lake of, like, pixel lava or something that, I mean, whatever. The point is, though, it's definitely a fun time at the movies, and the exact kind of Superman movie we need after the dark, edgy grittiness of previous DCEU flops. Man of Steel was fine, but this is a way, way better introduction to Superman as a character than Man of Steel is. For my money, at least.
The Roses.
I have zero prior experience with The Roses, or The War of the Roses, or whatever the version previously that you are acquainted to is called. I don't know the book, I don't know the original movie, I don't know. But this version of the story is awesome. The two leads are great. Personally, Olivia Colman is the standout performer. The inherent dynamic is compelling, and of all the movies on this list, I actually think this movie might have the best ending. It's one that I really just have not been able to stop thinking about. I love how this movie ends, the note it ends on, the themes expressed in the ending. It's really, really good, and it means that you walk away from the movie thinking a lot higher of it as a result. It's not really a dark comedy. I mean, it is dark and it is funny, but it's also bleak, mean, and vitriolic. At points it feels more like a dramedy. But it's a really, really good one. And it's a really interesting look at what spite, jealousy, sacrifice, tragedy, and complacency can do to a relationship. It's a very human story. And it's really led strongly by our two leads. But it's not perfect. The supporting cast in particular is the weakest aspect. Kate McKinnon didn't make me smile once in the whole film. And they paid for Andy Samberg to just have him sort of stand around and do his iconic open-mouthed smile. I don't... What was the point? I also think I might have preferred there being more emphasis on the actual battle between the two leads. though I think that's more the trailer leading me to that expectation. It's a lot more about the actual decline of the relationship rather than battle of the sexes, husband versus wife, the kind of thing that is maybe implied more by the trailer. I'd almost recommend diving straight into this movie and not bothering with the trailer, and taking the movie for what it is. Because let me tell you, it's great. It's really, really solid.
Sinners.
Sinners is one of those movies that I respect a lot more than I like. I mean, I do like it a lot, but I respect it more. I thought it was a great film, but it didn't resonate as strongly with me as it seems to have resonated with other people. For me, it could have done with a slightly shorter runtime and a few scenes maybe playing out a little bit differently, but that's me bringing my masters in filmmaking and my degree in creative studies into account. But it's another movie where I feel like I have to justify why it hasn't resonated with me more than it has. I'm so in awe of the creative vision behind it that the reason it doesn't resonate with me isn't inherently a criticism. I don't remember the last movie I saw of this kind that looks like this, sounds like this, carries itself like this. I think it's a genuine tour de force of filmmaking, and while, as I say, it doesn't resonate with me as much as other movies above it on this list, I respect the movie far too much for me to say anything less about it. The reasons it doesn't resonate with me aren't inherently criticisms or things that I would change, it just is more there for me to indicate to you why I don't share as much enthusiasm for it as some of the other movies that I will talk about. Like
The Long Walk.
Taking the bronze medal on my list is a film that really gripped me in a way that I wasn't expecting. Like I said in my assessment of The Surfer, some films are way more about the journey than the destination. And if you couldn't tell by the goddamn title, this is one of those movies. They basically do everything they can with the idea of a bunch of people walking in a straight line non-stop. And I'm grateful for that, because it was a hell of a trip. I love the characters, I love the themes, I love how intense and gut-wrenchingly visceral it is at some moments. It's a movie which really stuck with me, and while I have no doubt that Cooper Hoffman will deservedly take a lot of the praise, I think David Johnson is the real heart of the movie, and without question he's my choice for Best Supporting Actor this year. If he doesn't even get a nomination at the Oscars, robbed, snubbed, load of bollocks. There are a couple of aspects that feel a little bit undercooked. There's one character that has a big reveal about their motivations, which kind of feels like it comes from nowhere, but also feels really predictable, so I really don't know how to take it. And also, while I don't think the ending is bad necessarily, and I can imagine ways that it could have played out way worse, I can imagine a few ways I think it could have landed better. As it stands, it's a brilliant fucking journey, and it's a great time. Since watching this movie, I walk to work and I think to myself shit like, oh, I wonder if I'm walking at 3 miles per hour right now. I wonder if I'd get a citation. Fucking great.
Wake Up, Dead Man.
I love the Knives Out movies. I love the resurgence of the classic whodunit stories. So it's no surprise that Wake Up Dead Man is an excellent little mystery that I love. The fact that this entry takes place mostly in a church and has a lot of religious themes to it gives the film a uniquely gothic aesthetic and really interesting themes to explore for a whodunit. I'm so impressed at how all these movies have such distinct visuals and clear identities while still fitting so perfectly under the same Knives Out umbrella. It's cohesive, but it's so strong in its differentiation. Josh O'Connor does a great job carrying a lot of this movie's first third on his back. And I think there's a huge amount of this movie that simply wouldn't work with just Benoit Blanc running the show. Father Judd's character, the overall character, is up there with one of the best of the year for me. He has a little monologue about church as an allegory for storytelling, and it's such a nuanced and compelling representation of religion. It feels wonderful to see. It informs his character, it's performed brilliantly. Josh O'Connor and Father Judd are kind of the MVPs, for my money, for this year. The filmmaking is at its best in this film too. This definitely feels like the Knives Out formula running at full force. And while I think I personally prefer the first movie's overall vibe for a fun murder mystery, this is objectively the best in the Knives Out trilogy.
And in at number 1,
We're Here, my favourite movie of the year. In the same way that the bottom movie on this list isn't necessarily the worst movie, but it is my least favourite, number 1 on this list isn't necessarily the objectively best made movie of the year, rather it is my personal favourite of the year. The one that resonated with me, stuck with me, reminded me why I love movies. This movie took the top spot from the moment I saw it, and I spent most of the year waiting to see if anything could knock it off the top spot. I am still a little bit stunned I'm about to say these words. If you'd have told me at the start of the year that all these movies came out this year and Bridget fucking Jones would be my favourite movie of the year, I would say you don't know me at all and I'd call you crazy. And yet,
Bridget Jones, mad about the boy.
I'd seen the first Bridget Jones movie in my first year of uni. It was my flatmate's favourite film, so we all watched it together one night. I remember thinking it was pretty good, but it didn't really resonate that much with me. I didn't see any of the sequels, and really it was only because of my dear friend Molly that I ended up seeing this movie at all. She's big into the Bridget Jones movies, and hey, I'll try anything. You can make a good movie out of anything, and I genuinely believe that. I'm so grateful that she talked me into seeing this movie. Mad About the Boy is a wonderful, heartfelt, funny, charming film. It's a rom-com, yes, but there's so much more to it than that. It's not just about picking hunky boys with which to kiss and cuddle. It's about grief, loss, love, family, life, death, souls, dating, aging, relationships. There's so much to this movie and it's all handled so wonderfully. Without going too much into my personal life, the themes of a single mother looking after 2 slightly odd kids really inherently resonated with me. But you really don't have to resonate with that specific theme. It's a movie with so much to say and so much heart with which to express it. It's the only movie on this list that made me laugh and cry. I'm stunned at how accessible this movie is to a newcomer as well. All you really need to know before going into this is that Bridget dated Daniel and was married to Marc. They had 2 kids and Marc died. That's it. That's all you need to know. Now do yourself a favour. If you skipped over this movie, seriously consider giving it a chance. This film exceeded every expectation I had for it in a way that reminded me why movies made by humans who give a shit and who have something to say are so important. It's not perfect, and it's not a 10 out of 10, which, to be clear, are 2 different things for me, but it is my favourite movie of 2025. Nobody's more surprised than I am, but I've never been so happy to be so surprised. I missed a few movies that were really on my radar, so there's a possibility I'll see one of those and perhaps they will end up unseating Bridget Jones, or Lilo and Stitch if we're feeling pessimistic. Either way, this list isn't exactly set in stone. I might rewatch Sinners one day and like it more than Wake Up Dead Man, for example, or rewatch Until Dawn and demote it below Roof Man. But this list exists as a time capsule, a documentation of the movies I saw, the trends I liked and disliked, a glimpse into the film industry as a whole, and like every opinion, it is subject to change over time. For right now, this list, as it stands, feels right. I don't expect you to agree with all my opinions. Feel free to discuss in the comments, by the way. I would happily discuss movies all day, every day for the rest of my fucking life if I thought I could get away with it. But hopefully I've inspired you to check out some of the movies on this list. Who knows? One of them might just be your new favourite film. Anyway, generic end card speech, like and subscribe, donate to my coffee, or leave a super thanks if you hate your own money and want me to have it instead. Please watch my video tearing Lilo and Stitch apart. It got flagged when it came out. The algorithm has basically abandoned it. I worked so fucking hard on the video. Please!
Was that more lively? I don't know. Not till I listen to it back, but maybe I won't listen to it back.